Vertigo Nation, coming up on this episode, I'm going to be talking about speaking our truth, as well as talking just about truth in general and my theory about the three sides of truth, as well as talking about making mountains out of molehills. Yeah, and maybe this episode I'll even learn how to speak. All coming up on the next episode of Vertigo. Vertigo Nation, welcome back to another episode. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, please go ahead right now and hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you are listening to. And as always, this is the podcast that will make your head spin. All right. So, following up from last week, I had some great responses, and I just want to put out a thank you to those who texted me or messaged me and let me know that you had listened. And of course, I was told by who was a guest here multiple times, Andy, that it was nice to hear something level-headed, which I got a kick out of because I don't think ever been told I was level-headed. So thank you for that comment, man. That got me a good laugh for the day and also made me feel good. So I appreciate that, man. Talking a little bit about what's going on today as far as topics, right? I've got, my mind's been all over the place. I guess really what I've got to start here. I was at, I don't know if I should say where I was at because then it kind of gives a lot away. And I do want to be kind of respectful, even though this really just frustrated the shit out of me when I started thinking about it. And then when I started thinking about it even more, I realized we all do it. And then I was like, wow. So that also leads to kind of the topic of, allowing ourselves to evolve, right? Or like my nephew said, evolve, we have to evolve. And so I think that is important, that we evolve and that we allow ourselves, some time to grow. So let me tell you the story because again, I'm going to not say where I was just because I don't want to give the information away and then make it hit too close to home. But I think you'll appreciate the story anyway. So there was two people talking, right? And obviously knew each other very well. And because the typical what do they call it? The hey, how you doing? How's the kids? How's the dog? How's your wife? How's your and not in that order by any means. Let me rewind and say, hey, how's your wife? How's your kids? How's your dog? Let me make sure that I get that in the right order, right? How's your wife and kids? You got to put those in the same because now you could have some kids that are. We're just going to drop it. We're going to leave it right there and move on. So I'm listening to two people have this conversation, right? And so it goes something like this. I'm going to act this out to the best of my abilities. And so it's like, hey, how you doing, Bob? Fake name. And, I'm doing great. I need another fake name. Bill and Bob. Yeah, that's great, right? Two B's. I'm going to get confused real quick telling this story because my ADHD mind is not going to do this for too much longer. Anyway, Bill and Bob are talking. And, one says the other. It doesn't matter at this point who said what because we don't even know who Bill and Bob really are, do we? So anyway, one guy says to the other, so I can't believe that so-and-so that lives two houses down is building, this, or putting this fence up in their backyard. He's like, yeah. He's like, oh man. Oh, he says, oh man, that must be an eyesore. He goes, no, absolutely. He goes, it's a beautiful fence. He goes, which makes me wonder, what is this guy doing? That he's got enough money to do this fence. So they're gossiping about how, neighbor across the street is putting up this beautiful fence, right? So it's not an eyesore. It's a beautiful fence, he says. And that was the exact words he said. It's a beautiful fence. And then they're talking, like, berating the guy about how the fuck can he afford to do it? Like, how the hell has he got the money to do that? Last I knew, he was working some blah blah job and blah blah. You know, and it's like, what the shit. And now initially I'm chuckling, and then this is the part where it turned for me. So initially I'm chuckling and I'm kind of like interested in the story. So I'm like pretending not to listen, but I'm listening to him gossip about this because now I'm like, yeah, if that's the truth, how does this dude have the money? Like, what's got a side hustle going on? Like, what the? And then, so two things come to my mind. Who the fuck? Why do I care? You know? But then the dude's response was great, right? So now they go on and they talk about, you know, whomever and this one and what happened at church and, you know, who farted and whatever, right? And so anyway, they go to they move on, and then the guy, right, who was telling the story says, and can you believe that so and so had the audacity to ask me how much I pay in taxes? I mean, it is public information. I guess he could just look it up. But I can't believe that he would have the audacity to ask me, like, why is what I pay any of his business? And immediately my face dropped, and I'm like, wait a minute. This dude who just went on a tirade for 20 minutes about so-and-so building the fucking fence. And how in the world could he have the money? Like, very interested, obviously. So this dude is interested in everybody's finances. But don't ask him about his. And I just started thinking, I'm like, oh my fucking God, man. How much time and energy have I done, you know, put into something like that? You know, like, you know, why do we care? It's weird, right? It's this weird human condition. Because I do believe that we all do that in some capacity. In some capacity. Some I think are more severe. And I think that more so lately, because we're on 24/7 with social media and you know, whatever. So it's like, and I think also reality TV, like, we somehow think that shit's real. And I hate to tell you people, but reality TV is not real. It's about as real as professional wrestling, you know. And so I don't know. Again, I talked last week about life imitating art, art imitating life. It's just weird. But we have this like, wow, I can do it. There's like this very, I hate buzzwords. I'm going to tell you that. And I'm just going to say this. I think we have reached a very selfish point in our culture, which is interesting because years and years and years ago, I mean, I'm, you know, talking like, I had to be in my early 20s. There was a show on the radio, and I remember catching it. It was John Tesh radio. He was like a morning DJ. It doesn't really matter, but John Tesh radio. And he had said that he had noticed a culture in lyrics of songs changing, and we were heading towards a more like selfish, you know, more me-oriented culture. And ironically, I think over the course of, you know, let's say 30 years for argument's sake, right? That's kind of what I see now, I guess, is like, you know, I can say whatever I want to say about you, but don't you fucking dare say anything about me. And it's like, have we ever stopped to really think about like what that message is? It's like, what gives us the power to care about what somebody else is doing, unless it's impacting us or hurting us or harmful to us in some way. And I don't think that often that's the case. I think, you know, so I don't know. So I just got really thinking about it. So the story I found humorous at first, and then I guess it kind of led me into my topic, you know, of like, we need to be able to hear these things and then evolve, right? Because I think that's truly what makes us better as a society, is when we can kind of evolve. So for me, my personal thing was like, you know, which led me to like kind of an A-B kind of topic thing. So, you know, I was thinking about this and like, geez, why do I care so much, you know, about what other people are doing? Because if I turned that focus inward, right, and focused on the me in a healthy way, instead of it like, I can do this behavior, but you better not do it to me kind of attitude, I can kind of turn that around and say like, how do I put this energy into bettering myself, you know? And it really led me down this path of like, you know, and so then I started thinking about it even further, you know, and I started thinking about truths, like, is another thing that I hear so much. Like, we have to be speaking our truth. And I think that's true. I think we do have to speak our truth. But I also think that that's been misrepresented. I think there is something to be said to be able to be vocal about your feelings. But I also think that that comes with a responsibility that doesn't give me permission to put other people down or be hurtful to other people. I can talk about how I am feeling without it being a razor blade, I guess, but everybody then throws it onto, well, I'm just telling my truth. Yeah, maybe. Probably not really, though. You're using that as a misunderstood guise to say that I get to do this behavior because I am some way am hurt by whatever. And I just started thinking about that, which I remember once talking about three truths, right? And so I said, this is going to be an A-B kind of category thing. So just hang with me for a minute. Follow me on this. So, I started thinking about like the truths then, right? And there is my truth, but there's also your truth, right? So now there's two truths. Well, that can't be possible. So that's the three truth theory that I kind of think about is like, there's my truth, your truth, and somewhere in there is the truth. And maybe that doesn't matter. But we have to be focused on that, like, we're not, I don't want to say we're not 100% right, because we could be 100% right, but is it worth not being a little soft in the delivery, I guess? I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to kind of say that we have to remember that if we all are living by the I'm telling my truth kind of thing and it's daggers all the time, then that's what we need to expect is daggers. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we come to the determination that, yes, there's my truth, but I also need to be receptive to your truth. And then somewhere in there is probably like the true truth of what happened, but we both are seeing it through a lens of emotion. And so therefore the truths are slightly different, but in there somewhere is like what actually is the meat and potatoes of it all, right? Have I gone way off the deep end? I hope you're still following me, Vertigo Nation. Is your head spinning yet? Holy fuck, this guy was talking about, I thought he was talking about finances and two people talking about finances, and now all of a sudden we're talking about truths and what? We're playing two truths and a lie? No, that's not what's happening here. This is not two truths and a lie. This is talking about three truths and how do we evolve, right? Holy shit, I better take a drink. All right. So this is just all the stuff, I guess, that's been weighing heavy on my mind. And I guess it really does come from a place of witnessing so much violence. I feel like we have just entered this new era. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know how to say it. It's just been this very heavy, school shootings, and this has been going on for so long. I mean, the first real school shooting that I remember, and I remember really being covered in the news, was Columbine. So I'm coming from that era of being a very young adult. I was out of high school when that happened. I think I'm gonna have to Google the year, and I'm gonna do that right now. But my point being that it's just, there's just been this increase or one-upping of violence, and it's just we've gotten so desensitized to it, and we can't be, I don't know. It was just crazy. So let's check. So 1999, yeah, I've been out of high school for 5 years at that point. So April 20th, 1999 was Columbine. And so, yeah, I just feel like, there, and so with that has come intolerance. And, listen, I'm not saying that there isn't bad in the world that's going to be bad. Like, there is always going to be bad, but that's kind of the thing. It's like, but we are entering where it's like we are just almost always coming across on the negative side, I guess. Like, we just are, that's our first response, is to just be nasty to one another. And I'm including myself in that. I am in no way saying that I'm like some fucking guru, and I'm actually like learning this as I'm putting it out, you know. I'm actually wrestling with this shit as I'm putting it out. And so I'm kind of bearing, I guess, I'm being vulnerable, you know, in a sense, because I'm admitting that like this is literally the thought process that is happening for me in the now as I'm recording these episodes. A lot of times when I come up with these topics, that's very much how it comes up for me, is I'm actually wrestling with this in the now. And so Vertigo then becomes a way for me to like talk through it with all of you. And that's why also I love hearing from you, and why I love hearing the responses, because then it's like we're engaging in this and we're evolving in some way as a culture because we're talking again. And that's that, you know? So, you know, and so going back to the truth thing, and I said there's going to be an A-B topic to this. And so the A topic of, you know, thinking about this culture that we have, right? The original topic is this culture that we have where I can say, do what I want to do, but fuck you for doing that. And it's like, what, you know, we all have that attitude, and that's, I can't say we all, right? It's like saying, you know, everybody loves Burger King. No. You know, everybody loves McDonald's. No, right? Not everybody. You can say many or a lot or most, but not all, right? Holy Sean, ADHD. Turn it down a little bit. You got to turn that down a little bit. Okay. Sorry about that. Did I tell you you're listening to Vertigo, the show that will make your head spin? All right. Thank you for joining me after that quick break. Okay. So, you know, we're talking about that whole culture of, and the word I was staying away from was narcissism. But I guess in a sense, I don't believe that we as a culture are, well, maybe, I guess, from a psychological standpoint, I guess we could say that in fairness, that we're more narcissist as a culture. And, you know, and maybe that is true. I was trying to stay away from that word because it's such a buzzword, but there is definitely this movement of, you know, like I said, I can do what I want to do. And, you know, if you do that to me, though, how dare you, right? It's like this whole weird thing, right? And then how, like, we then justify that by saying, you know, well, I'm speaking my truth. Well, there's kind of three sides to truth, right? And talking about that. And I wanted to kind of prove my point, because I don't want to just put a thought out there and then not say something about it. So that's the A-B topic. And so with the B, what I'm saying is, or the B topic is, when I was an addiction counselor, and people would come in and do their treatment plans, I would always ask them for an accountability partner, meaning randomly, I'm going to call, you know, that person. It can be a family member, it can be a spouse, whoever you choose to do, brother, sister, it doesn't matter, best friend, you know, whatever. But I'm going to call them randomly from time to time and just check in and see how they feel that you're doing, right? And it's called an accountability partner. And that's an important part in healing in the addiction process. We need people, you know, to tell us, hey, you know, you're slipping, or I'm seeing some, especially in the early, you know, days of sobriety. So accountability partner. But I'm going to leave it there. So, and why do we do that, right? Because it helps us keep our truth in check. Because without that, we can justify our behavior very easily, right? But if we have an accountability partner, you know, and that can be the self, I think that's the evolving part. We need to like take a minute to think, to sit with our thoughts and kind of think like, why, you know, I've been trying to do this lately, you know. Wait a minute, why am I having this gut reaction to what, you know, Minna said or whatever? And not always just negative, just in general, like, oh, I'm having this gut reaction. Like, I want to check that for a minute because, you know, because I want to be better in my responses. And how do I do that? You know, by checking myself and checking my emotion. And that doesn't mean that the emotion is bad. It's just giving myself a second, And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. So it's like, even that I have to sit here and try to justify that to the Vertigo Nation, it's just strange, right? Like, justifying this behavior that's a healthy behavior. But, you know, this leads to another interesting kind of, so maybe a C topic. um, you know, Min and I were talking, and we were just talking about media, and it was fairly close. I'm trying to think if it was in regard to the Charlie Kirk assassination. I'm trying to think. It doesn't matter, I guess, in the timeline. It was in there, and we were talking about media, and and just how things go crazy, right? Because you have so much different types of media. You have social media, which isn't always necessarily true to telling the story, and then you have the national media, or like ABC News and Fox News and all of those, and then they can very easily be biased, and we know that. And if you don't know that, again, they are biased, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we have to call it what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. They're biased, man. It's just what it is, And so we have to accept those kinds of things, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, but what she had said was, it's crazy how, like, people will believe a lie so much easier than the truth. Like, you tell somebody the truth and they question you. Like, is that the truth? It's like, or the famous saying, well, I don't think that's the truth. It's like, okay, again, your truth, my truth, the truth is somewhere in there. But just and yeah, this is a topic I think I want to talk across the table with somebody on, because my mind is zooming around in like 60 different conversations on how this could go. And because I don't want to get that far down a rabbit hole, I'm going to leave it there. But I think, what I'm trying to say is we need accountability partners again. And I think that it can be the self. In this case of mental health, it can be the self, but it's got to be that positive self-talk. It's got to be that, and that's what I'm learning. Again, as I'm doing these topics, this is stuff that, like, I'm battling into now with. So I appreciate you hanging in and listening this far into the podcast. And again, if you have not hit the subscribe button, I want you to take a minute right now. If you're enjoying the episode, if you're enjoying the show, I want you to take a minute and I want you to hit the subscribe button. And I want you to keep listening, because, why else would I put this out, right? All right. Again, let's just be, this is all about the truth, man. And the truth is this is an art form for me, and I enjoy that people are tuning in. And I would appreciate, if you're enjoying the show, to subscribe and tell a friend about it. And let's grow the numbers on here, because it's fun, right? It's fun. And we're all involved in this thing, man. We're growing it. This is grassroots, and we're doing it together. So, all right. And so lastly, I want to tie kind of those last thoughts together, that, again, we're in this culture of I've already hit on it like 16 times. So, right. But, we need to be accountable to also ourselves and to our feelings, and, kind of like evolve and become better. And that's really like where all of those topics tie in. And we need accountability partners, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like, I'm blessed in the sense Min and I are that for one another for sure, but then I also feel like I can also internalize a little bit and start to really like do like the thinking through. And, I'm not talking, it's not like hours long conversations, it's just talking about like quick second long conversations. Like, why did I say that? Or I could respond to better, or, just quick stuff. So, yeah. So that's really the thing, is making sure that we're evolving. And again, I want to just kind of hit on the importance of, like, I don't want to take away from the importance also of one speaking one truth, in the sense of a lot of victims and survivors, are finding their voices and telling their truths. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in these instances like the story I told about, like, hey, I wonder how so and so is affording to, put up a fence, but hot damn, Charlie across the street asked me about my taxes and if what I'm paying, and blah blah, and how dare he talk to me about my finances, right? That whole, like, that's what I'm talking about here, like, that we need to keep ourselves in check a little bit. So that's why I said, like, I want to stay away from these buzzwords, because there is true narcissism. There is true narcissism, and maybe we've met someone who, but then there's the buzzword of narcissist, and then we call everybody a narcissist who maybe we see as being a little selfish or ego, and that's not necessarily narcissism. So, that's why I'm so careful. Again, I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I have no right, probably using any of those terms, but it is what it is. And here we are. So, allowing ourselves to evolve. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about making mountains out of molehills, because this is the other thing I noticed the other day. So, completely switching gears, man, throwing it in the grind. We're going backwards now. So, anyway, I was thinking about this too. Have you ever met somebody, or maybe you're the person, and I think that's fair to admit, right? That, makes a mountain out of a molehill, right? And I was thinking about this for some reason. Actually, because I was at work. This is a story that I can tell a little more safely without hurting anybody's feelings. I was at work, and somebody brought in their computer and thought they were having a meltdown because they thought that they had lost all their stuff because the computer shut off. So my job as an IT guy, right, is to talk the person off the ledge, but also, like, truthfully look at what's going on and determine, like, is this a fixable issue, right? And so I'm trying to talk to them, and they're like, they are just absolutely certain that they lost everything. The computer shut off in the middle of them typing. They lost everything. Nothing's there. They didn't lose the document they were working on. No, they lost everything. There was nothing left on. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So come to find out, the charger was bad. That was it. Plugged it in. Charges, holds a charge, nothing wrong, so mountain out of a molehill kind of situation, right? There's like this truth of there's that, there's the thing is like, yeah, the computer shut off, and that's scary. It freaks you out for a minute, and you want to know why. And my mind is like, okay, is this like, am I now going to have to buy a new device expensive, or am I just going to have to, like, get this repaired? And it turned out to be a charger, right? So I get the immediate, like, anxiety of, like, okay, what the hell just happened, right? I mean, you're in your car and something makes a noise and you're like, shit, is that expensive? I think because that's just the reality, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, there's those folks though that they make a mountain out of it, and you can't talk them off the mountain. They won't come down off the mountain. It's like they're up there and they climb the motherfucker, but they're not coming down. They are up there. And I think it's important, to, and then, the frustrating part is, fuck with the important part. But the frustrating part is, I think, too, is, when, I don't know how to say it, I guess. I'm trying in my mind, like, there's a part of me that wants to just let it loose, right? And there's a part of me that's like, no, just be a little reserved. The part that wants to let it loose is like, this person, right? It's like, anyway, moving on. We're just gonna walk away from that for a minute, right? But yeah, the insanity, man, that of, like, just, it's funny, I guess, to me. Like, I stand back and I look at our culture with a little bit of humor, and this is the stuff that just rolls off the tongue, I guess, because I think about it, and there's a part of me that gets so frustrated, like, thinking about it and talking about it, and then there's a part of me that's like, no, like, we need to kind of call this behavior out, or call this whatever out. And, so making mountains out of molehills, and you can't talk the people out of it, is where I was, going with that. It's like this person with the computer, right? It's like, it's like, no, it's just, and they're like, you're sure it's just a charger? I'm not going to take this home and it's going to be still broken. It's like, or I'm going to take this home and it's going to have the scan. It's like, I promise you, it's just like, you cannot convince them that it's not serious. It's like once they've made that determination, and I started thinking, I'm like, God, I hope I don't do that, and I'm pretty confident that I don't. I think I'm definitely admit that I'm one of those people that are like, oh, that sounds expensive, but I'm absolutely accepting of the fact of when it's not, because I'm like, fuck yeah, you know. And so, but this is just like, no, they were determined that when they brought that computer home and plugged it in, that it was still going to be dead, even though I said, why don't you, I said, like, give me a minute to look at it. You know, there's plenty of places to eat, grab a coffee, whatever. Go do that. Come back. I'll let you know. And so they agreed, and they took off, and they were gone for, gosh, like longer than I expected. They were gone for like 20 minutes or more. And so by that time, I had the new charger, and the computer was like from dead. It was like, you know, I don't know, 20, 25%, enough where I could unplug it from the charger, and it stayed up. And so that's what I did. She came back, and I said, just want to show you, it was your charger, blah, blah, blah. I unplugged the thing, show that, look, it's holding a charge. Go ahead, type on it. Your document is actually still here. So because it had just shut down, anything happened. So it was like, do you want to restore your last session? Yeah, there it all is. That's wild, right? It's just, yeah, but they were still like, no, this thing's dead. Okay. It's dead. And so is this conversation. Moving on. So yeah, just this whole like spectacle of humanness. And I'm not trying to pick on us as a culture, but I am trying to say, like, I feel like we've got to pay better attention. And so I know this episode, it sounds like my mind is all over the place. I did that partly because I said during this episode, or before recording this episode, I want to give people a taste of like the old Vertigo without telling you, because I guess I'm testing the waters a little bit to mix some of that personality in of what Vertigo was, like truly me just being a spaz and all over the place. And it was done with intent. It was done with intent. So, you know, I just want you to know that. So anyway, if you are sorry, my wife just texted me, so I spaced out for a minute because I just wanted to make sure that she is safe. And yeah, she is safe, and so I apologize for that, for getting distracted. I wasn't expecting that. So anyway, Vertigo, yes, it was, or that it was a mix of personality is what I'm trying to say. I wanted it to be serious topics, but delivered in this really spastic kind of, you know, head spinning way, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I didn't forewarn, but no, this episode was very much recorded with intent and purpose and being kind of all over the place personality wise. But what I really want to focus on, and I do want to take like the last couple of minutes of your time that you're listening to this and just say, you know, in all seriousness, I do think that if we took more time to really just think for even a second about, you know, our reactions or whatnot, that, you know, things do all of a sudden become lighter, more positive. I don't know. I notice a change, I guess, is what I'm saying. And for me, I've noticed a change for the better. I guess that's what I can say, right? I've noticed that the more that I've paid attention to like how I'm feeling in a certain situation, and it's taken me, man, I'm 49 years old, closer to 50 at this point in my life, right? I am tilting towards 50. So I'm not a fresh 49-year-old is what I'm saying. Although I still feel pretty fresh. I still feel pretty, I don't know, man. I feel a little funky. I feel like, you know, good. But I also acknowledge that, you know, that's where I'm at in my walk in life, you know. And I guess what I'm saying is, you know, for so long I battled, like, I was kind of an egomaniac in the sense of like, I thought that I knew better. I thought that I could take care of it. And then I started to really listen to what had been told to me from years back and pulling it forward, and then really start practicing it. And it's like, oh, those folks knew what they were talking about. That's kind of wild, you know? So I just want to share that and where I am in my experience, and hopefully, maybe it can just help us as a culture kind of regain, because I know as a culture we are still good. I see it, right? I see it. I see it in the grocery stores when, there's a donation thing for somebody who's battling maybe something with health, or house fires, or I've seen it and I've seen it in my own community, the goodness that people have. So I know it's there, but I also think that we've lost some of it because we can flip a switch so easily and become so nasty so easily, right? And so whether it's through social media, because we can be in the keyboard warriors, I guess, or whatever you want to, we all, I'm just saying, if we just take a minute to just kind of think to ourselves and kind of keep ourselves in check, like, it's kind of incredible the change that we can see. And so I challenge everybody to kind of just do that. Take a second to really just think about, you know, put yourself in check, I guess, is all I can say, So anyhow, I don't want to get preachy, man. That's not what this is about, but I do hope that I captured your attention. And, if this episode felt like really erratic for you, I do apologize. It won't be the norm, but I just was feeling, I don't know. I was just feeling like that was the best delivery for this topic, I guess. So, not to get over explanatory, but that's what it is. So, Vertigo Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Again, if you have not hit that subscribe button, please, please, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and continue to come back and listen. I appreciate it, Vertigo Nation. Let your head spin, but let's also get back in touch with that goal. Let's like maybe just extend a little bit of love, right? Just a little bit of love. All right. Peace to my Vertigo Nation.